I'm sitting in the railway station, got a ticket for my destination. On a tour of once.
I have 3 different bottom brackets here. I have the one that we're going to show you today how to take apart, and then I also have 2 different bottom brackets from one from Shimano and one from Velo Orange. And I'll show you these just to give you an example of what you might encounter. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools you might need and some ways to work around if you don't have the exact tool you need for the specific bottom bracket. Okay, so this one, if I bring it closer, you can see that it has some different pieces here. One is it has a cup, a drive side cup, and it's a solid shaft, and the non-drive side is solid and integral with the bottom bracket. You'll also notice that it has pressed in to the assembly a sealed bearing. This is more common on newer designed square taper bottom brackets. Older designs used bearings with bearing retainers, not the sealed type, so they could be cleaned up and serviced easily and not thrown away. And I can actually show you one of those, so let me grab one of those for you. Okay, so here's an even older style of bottom bracket that you may encounter, especially on older bikes, vintage bikes. Sorry, I don't know what year you would maybe start seeing these, but certainly back in the 70s and 60s, you'll start to see bottom brackets designed like this, where you have cups for each side of the bottom bracket. This would thread into the bottom bracket shell of the frame, and then you would have inside there, you have a race, that's the bearing race, and then you have the bearing, which is just regular ball bearings held together with a retainer. This metal ring just retains these balls so they don't get lost, and it's easy to put together. And then you would have the spindle, bottom bracket spindle, and this part has threaded on this particular one is threaded with nuts. You can see here this one has a nut that threads on to a threaded shaft, whereas this one has a bolt that would thread into the spindle. And the bolt, all the bolt does is it keeps the crank arm keeps pressure on the crank arm and holds it from coming off the spindle. And I hesitate on that because if you look at the spindle's tapered, so, and the inside of the crank arm is also tapered, and it's a pressed on fit. So once it's pressed on, it holds kind of rigidly, so there's not a lot of movement, and then the nut just keeps it from backing off or sliding out. So both type of bottom brackets are good. These are certainly more serviceable, and they're well designed. I think they're probably made from really hardened steel, so you don't have to worry too much about them. If you keep them clean, then they'll be serviceable. So anyway, this threads into the bottom bracket shell. The bearing goes in there, and this would go on here like that, and simply there's a little shoulder. As you can see on this side, there's a little shoulder that's machined in, or forged, and maybe in this case, into this spindle, which retains the bearing. And it's a very simple design. It works very well. I mean, these things probably last, this would probably last forever if it's cared for. There's no reason to replace it. This particular one is an Italian threaded, these have Italian threads, so they would only work on a bike with a 70mm bottom bracket shell and a Italian thread. This is 68mm. Oh, sorry, this is also an Italian. This is a 70mm Italian threaded bottom bracket. So they're the same. So these two are compatible, actually. Let's see, I think the widths may be different. Yeah, you can tell that the Velo Orange is narrower. So that's so that kind of describes a bit about about that. Now the tools, as you can see, this one was made in an era where proprietary tools were not as idealized as they are today in the bike industry. The bike industry today likes to have everything proprietary so that you have to buy their stuff and it's not compatible with other manufacturers. That's maybe one reason. I'm sure there's more reasons for it, but if you get into newer stuff, you'll find a lot of times that parts are more proprietary and you'll need specialized tools. Back then, a lot of this stuff was kind of standardized across the industry, and that made it better for the user, the end user, but it may not have been as good for the manufacturer. It obviously, having everything standardized means the design options are more limited. So when you make things proprietary, you open up the door for innovation and designs that could be, it opens up the opportunity for more design ideas, etc. So now let's take a look at the specialized one while we're here. I think this one is this is a 68mm bottom bracket. It's made by Shimano. This is a very inexpensive one. You can probably buy this for $10 or $15. It's basically designed to be kind of like a throwaway. It has plastic cups and it has the Shimano proprietary tool. So let's take a look at this. So what tool would you use to thread this into the bottom bracket shell? Because again, this threads into the bottom bracket. You would use something like this. Now this is a Shimano tool, so it fits with the Shimano bottom bracket. So you'll need this tool to thread in the cup with this bottom bracket. On this one also uses a similar type of threaded cup. So you would need, let's take this apart, take a look. This Velo Orange also uses the Shimano style tool. So there's some compatibility there with tools. So this tool, this is a Park tool. Let's see if we can get a good look at it. This is the Park tool bottom bracket. It's BBT, which stands a bit, I assume, for bottom bracket tool. And it says, what does it say? It says number 2. So anyway, you may need to buy that to install this bottom bracket. Now over here on this older bottom bracket, this Sugino bottom bracket, which is made in Japan, uses has 2 flat sides, so you can use a standard wrench for that to thread that in. On this side, you would need a spanner type wrench, which has the 2 prongs, and the spacing on the spanner is important to make sure you get it so that it's going to be centered about the axis, so when you're threading it out, you're not putting some weird angle on it.
That stands my suitcase and guitar in hand, and every stop is neatly planned for a poet and a one-man band.